Thank you all for being here. I want more people in this room because I want more people to be able to communicate the business value of everything we're doing, because unfortunately as an industry, we really like the techie stuff, but we don't always know how to translate that into what the business cares about. So that's what we're here to talk about. I'm Danielle Cook. I work at a startup called AppCD. But I'm also a co-author of the CNCF Cloud Native Maturity model. I'm a CNCF ambassador, and this is Simon.
Yep, I'm Simon Forster. I'm a financial services contractor. I work in the City of London, and I work with some large financial institutions. So that influences pretty much everything I'm going to talk about today.
And so we run the Cartographist Working Group. Simon named it, not me. And the working group was set up to provide resources to people who are on their cloud native journey, whether you're new to it, whether you are a seasoned veteran, just something that you can check in and be like, should I be doing this now or when or whatnot? And so we started it in 2021, and then we launched the Cloud Native Maturity model, and we also, we maintain it now, and we also work on different pieces to try and get people to just understand this whole area, because obviously there was another talk I was in a few minutes ago that showed the landscape, and there's a lot happening in it. And so most recently, we updated the Cloud Native Maturity model. We kind of changed it around to focus on what is the business value of everything that we are all doing every day.
So here we've got the really ugly graphic, which I'll talk about, for the Cloud Native Maturity model. We drew it up as a Parthenon, because there's so much Greek in Cloud Native. There are 5 levels to the maturity model. They start out at level 1, which is build. That's at pre-production, so that's getting ready for production. You do have cloud native environments, you are working in development. Level 3 is the middle of the model, that's scaling, and that tends to be quite a messy part of the cloud native journey for a lot of organizations, as they have a proliferation of technology and are still working to standardize and finalizing. And then we have level 5 at the top, which is adapt, and that's really at the visionary end of the spectrum, and that's where we want everybody to get to. Now, you'll see that there's 4 columns or 4 pillars. There are key areas within the model of people, process, policy, and technology. We see them as existing, they're interdependent upon each other and of relatively equal weighting. Now, at the end of last year, we did a talk in Chicago with another update to the model to bring out more the business value, because what became really clear was that the entire reason why we do cloud native in the first place is to provide value to the business. It's to the people who have got business functionality they need to release and actually need to pay the bills. Sadly, somebody's got to pay for all of my toys. Yeah.
Yeah. So why now? Why do we care about this? So earlier today, we had Taylor who talked to us about cloud native, and he talked about velocity and efficiency and all those words that we always talk about. And I would argue that actually we need to be talking about it in terms of time to market and accelerating the value for our customers and delighting customers, and really just to translate all of that to what your business leaders want. So to dig into this a little bit more, we know that right now we have this market fluctuation happening, right? So we have people have been laid off, companies are coming and going, there's acquisitions that are huge sums of money and then they're ditched. Lots is changing in our market. And so if we can't communicate why we want this new open source project and how it's going to deliver against the business goals, how can we be more profitable? How can we improve our customer retention rates? It's not ideal for us. We're still going to face all of these challenges. We also have the rise of the developer. So obviously, we've had lots of talks today talking about the platform and the platform and the platform. Well, what is the platform really here to do? It's here to get our applications out there faster And developers are being asked to do more and more and more, and now they're writing their infrastructure's code, and they're figuring out how to deploy this and that and whatnot. And so we really need to keep that in mind when we're communicating to our business leaders about, like, okay, how are we arming the developer? And then finally, we have AI, our favorite. Everyone's saying, hey, we're going to 10x our code and it's going to be amazing, but all of us need to figure out how to support that.
And the key point about AI is that it's going to stretch our platforms. Okay, it's going to it provides us with a whole new set of business functionality that people are experimenting with already and are going to want to deploy, and it's going to really need to have the scalability and all of the qualities that we know that cloud native platforms offer, that we're all here to develop. So sort of having outlined that and taken a closer look, so we'll just go into a bit more details. Now, I've got the cloud native definition up here, and it was actually very recently updated in February this year. So if you haven't noticed that, it's now at version 1.1. And I want to highlight, I've highlighted and made bold the second sentence of that. And the words that I've really tried to flush out are secure, resilient, manageable, sustainable, and observable. And they're all words that we're all quite familiar with. But what I want to start bringing them in, the idea I want to bring across though, is that we have this split in technology stacks, and I think a lot of us know this from our previous studies or wherever, and working as architects, that we have the split between the functional. So we've got how the software behaves, its business capabilities, it's the line of business functions that it's there to support. For me, in my world, that's trading systems, it's HPC grids, and right now a lot of market data repository work. But it's all of that I have to go and support. Now, if we take a look on the right-hand side, we've got the non-functional side. And these are these quality attributes there: placement, availability, efficiency, security, manageability. And if we cast our mind back to the definition of cloud native that we had on the previous slide, what we see is they all match. We fundamentally have cloud native, and my argument is that it's really providing us, okay, the platform with all of the qualities that I need to go and support that business functionality. And cloud native excels when it comes to, again, those things that we've got listed on the right-hand side. So as a community, and I have to advocate internally within my organizations for those qualities. Now, there's a challenge with that. It often comes back down to money. Okay, it's really hard to go and advocate for something. I want us to go and have these platforms in these areas and these locations that can scale up to this such and such a size within my solution designs. Okay, and that I have to go and it costs. Why do we need to go and have a regional cluster compared to a zonal cluster? What is all of those, it consistently comes back to money. Yep.
And just to say, like, when you start talking about zonal, I start to kind of glaze off, because I'm like, what? Why doesn't it matter to, again, the business?
But the thing is, we still have to spend money on it, because if we had just one cluster on Black Friday, I think I don't really need to say more about that, because I suspect we've all had those moments in the past. And so we need to probably go back to decent solution architecture here, and we need to be going and classifying effectively our applications. Here's a really basic table: low, medium, high, mission critical, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, etc. Okay, and classify applications. The key point is that different platforms have different qualities, which mean different investment requirements. So it's an obvious thing. You get what you pay for. The more you want, the more you have to pay for it. And it's really incumbent on us to make sure that we get all of that tiering correct for the applications. And that also includes stages. I don't necessarily need a development or a test system or cluster or platform to live up to the same SLA as production, okay? But still costs. Yep.
And we did debate these at length yesterday because we prepared for this really early, and we're like, an expense app, that's probably low if you do your expenses ahead of time, but if you're waiting till the deadline, it's probably more urgent for you. Just saying. Okay, so we wanted to talk about, we did an animated slide on this. I forgot. I was like, where's everything on this? Okay, we want to talk about the different, audience of the business that we're referring to a little bit, just to make sure we're all aligned. So we have our CEO. So the CEO, they care about profitability. They care about growth. They care about the strategic mission of the organization. They care about their investors. And so when you are talking to them, you need to only be talking about those things that they care about. Now, you might be at a really large organization and maybe don't have a direct line-to-line with like Bezos, but you could also be, at an organization where there's 50 people and you can totally talk to the CEO. But it's to keep that in mind. Your CFO, they care about your budgeting, your forecasting, how you are doing financial planning. So if you go to them and you say, hey, I can improve my cluster efficiency by doing this, and I can right size this, they don't care about that. They want it in the language of like, hey, I can save us money by doing a thing, and I'm gonna need a tool, but you're gonna actually get some money in the back. Amazing. COO, right? So operational efficiency, like how are we getting things to run more efficiently, more smoothly? What business strategies are we implementing to do that? That is where, you want to be talking about, like, if I do, yes, it's going to be long term. The cloud native journey isn't short, right? But when we do these investments, it's going to pay off in the end from our operations. And then finally, we have our CISO. Obviously they are responsible for all the security, physical, digital, all of that. And so again, like when you are talking about, hey, I want to implement policies as code, and I might want to adopt Caverno, for example. Maybe don't go into that level of detail. Maybe talk about, hey, if I can codify, and that is even still too technical, but talk to them about, I can manage risk more efficiently and drive consistency with a tool, and I'm going to do that, and it's going to make your life easier. And it's going to be auditable.
Absolutely. I'd just like to touch quickly on a point. Sometimes there's some subtleties around these things as well. The CFO is a really good one. When we adopt cloud native and take advantage of cloud service providers, it has a really dramatic effect on the accounting within an organization. And particularly within, say, my background is large financial institutions, you put in a purchase order, 2 months later, all of your racks of servers arrive, okay? We go and rack them, we set up, we provide or provision all of the infrastructure. Well, we've just got a massive capital investment that then needs to be depreciated over 3 years. And so what happens is you might have these large sums. There is still a huge amount of money being invested, but it often comes out of, say, a central organization. It might come out of, it'll be removed often from the consumers, and you might have crazy internal cross-charging models. Well, what's happening now is within larger organizations, actually, as soon as the service is consumed from the cloud service provider, it's operating expenditure. It's billed for on the next invoice that comes in and hits the organization and may be directly charged back to the application owner directly or the product owner. So if something to be aware of is that I've found myself having to discuss with senior managers why these bills look the way they are. Because although they've had them before, they've been in crazy internal money that sort of doesn't necessarily make sense. And that's a really important thing to be aware of. And there are similar challenges, within the security area and also affecting the CTO.
All right, so we thought we would just do a little bit of technical capabilities versus like the business outcomes and how you want to be communicating this.
So I love technical features. I love my working with HPC grids, cluster auto scaling is really important to me. It's absolutely critical. Working with policy, continuous delivery and continuous deployment, speeding up release times, absolutely fantastic. And Argo's a great tool there, just shout out there. Okay, and I also put in a lot of effort to go and make sure I make the most efficient use of the resources that I have available, and everything I do is technical. So the way I tend to talk about that is I'm going to deploy spot nodes in these regions, I'm going to use this tooling, and here's how we're going to do it. And
then there's me, and I'm like, I don't really care about communicating that. What I care about is that I need to delight my customers. So how am I going to delight my customers? Well, I need to make sure that when they open their app, it works, so it's reliable. I need to make sure that if they are putting in their credit card information, I don't have to send them a letter that says, whoops, there was a breach. We'll now track your credit score. I want to make sure that my customers are asking for new things. So I want to increase time to market. That's what I care about. And then of course, I want to do all of this and everything, and I don't want it to cost me that much money. So when Simon comes to me and says all of these things, I'm like, whoa, how does it relate to these things? And I think that's how everybody needs to really start thinking about their day jobs and what you're doing. And we did have another little thing there.
Yep. So again, the key things are often when we do, in some institutions, when we do solutions designs, we think, is there reputational damage that may result from an outage of such and such a length? Or what effect is this going to have on our ability to get new customers? Yep. So those are the things.
So we wanted to actually kind of apply what we've been talking about to some of the sessions you might have attended today. So I actually reached out to a bunch of the speakers who are here and asked them hey, so you're doing a talk on this, what how would you talk about this in terms of the business value you're going to deliver? So here's some of that. And so you might have attended these sessions, or you might not have. So if you attended the canoe section, which just happened over there, we had Tyra and Luke talking about it. And so, really cool stuff, framework, loved how they talked about it. But what does it really do? It helps reduce your trial and error. So that's around your efficiency and resource optimization. It helps increase the velocity. So that's about time to market, accelerating your ability to meet customer demand. And then risk mitigation. Ooh, that was louder. So, again, that's about, great, we don't have to worry about the things that maybe we should have had to worry about if we were doing this on our own. Canister was another one. Unfortunately, I missed this session, but I have the talk notes, so if you did attend this session. So this is all about consistent backups. So again, it's about, we're going to future-proof in terms of risk reduction. And one of the key points is we're going to make sure it's easier on our employees so we don't have employees leaving. And that's a direct, your chief people officers are going to care about that. It's expensive to hire and recruit people, so you don't want to annoy them. You want to make sure that you're doing things more easily. In addition, reducing downtime. So I think about that in terms of my customer wants to pick up an application and have it work. So the more I can do to make sure if there is a disaster that I'm back up and running, the better it's going to be for my customer. We have WASM. Now you did attend this session today, and you said it was really good. So this is around lower cost. Okay, everybody, that's your CFO budgeting, right? Forecasting. How do we lower that cost? And then also providing your developers with a great experience. And that, again, helps with your turnover, employee satisfaction, all of those things. Again, it's expensive to recruit people, and you don't want people frustrated. We also have, this one's coming up, so, I feel like I've mentioned Caverno, but now I'm talking about this. I don't actually use Caverno, but not that I do, anyways. So, cloud native policy as code, why is it important? Well, again, reducing costs. Why is that important? Because it's expensive to be fixing misconfigurations and finding them. And when you're trying to find them, you are not doing the other work that you were hired to do. And it's expensive if you have a security issue or breach, or something doesn't meet compliance. You face penalties and whatnot. And then Jim did say it also improves developer productivity. So you can talk to him about that later. And then finally, we had Hope, who was talking about open telemetry. So in this, again, I asked Hope, who's here, which is great, around why does this matter? And it's about boosting customer confidence. So your customer is delighted. They have a great experience. And that is, again, how you should be talking about it. Yeah, open telemetry, really, really cool. Our customers are going to be happier with us, and here's why. We're going to be able to delight them. Increasing revenue. So, how can you, if you're not spending time debugging, you're spending time on being more productive. So it's just a few examples from talks today. So if you're interested in bringing one of those home, think about that in terms of that language. Okay, so in summary, what we, I would encourage all of you not to go home to your day jobs and whatnot and just go, I learned this new cool technology. Now, I do think you should do that to the right people in the right audience, because that's important. But what I do think you need to do is, if you really want to use a tool, use the language that your bosses want to use, and look at what your business goals are and objectives and map it to that. So use language like, hey, I can reduce our risk because I can do this. I can improve our customer acquisition cost because I can do this. I can reduce our cloud costs, right? Or I can better optimize it so that we can spend our cloud resources in better ways. So I would just encourage all of you to think in those terms.
And likewise, just on that last note as well, when we discuss cloud native, it's sometimes really difficult to describe it to people who don't know it. Sometimes the developer who is working on functional code, delivering a new capability that's been directly requested by the business, has an easier job of selling that, and they often get requests for that. It becomes more difficult when we attempt to necessarily sell the advantages of cloud native, particularly when it has a perception at times of being actually expensive or not as cheap as we thought it was going to be a few years ago, because that's what we were told. Okay, we need to think very carefully about what the qualities of it are, and then try and stretch ourselves to think, how is this going to really translate for the people who are signing the invoices?
So we do have some resources. We should have done a QR code, lesson learned for next time. But we have the Cloud Native Maturity Model. We do run the Cartographos Working Group, which you can join if this is of interest to you, or if you're like, hey, I have a project that I work on and I want you to talk about the business value in the maturity model, we would be happy to do that. So those are a bunch of different resources. And then contributing.
Yep. So there's a few points here. Just on this this business value topic that we've discussed today. We're really keen to understand how you're discussing that aspect. But likewise, we've just picked up and started a new conversation with the AI working group. So we're looking to start bringing the content out of that part of the CNCF into the maturity model as well, to help people sort of get started and sort of work their way through that. So we've got a few things there, and we would really love your thoughts, ideas, and assistance as well. Yeah, it's a great way to contribute.
All right. Any questions?